Valve is unveiling a new policy for games released on Steam where they're no longer allowed to have advertisements that force players to watch them. Now, this hasn't been the worst thing in the world for Steam games. This is mostly an issue with mobile games, but still, there are some games that are going to be affected by this. And I do think that for the most part, this is actually good news, but I do have some issues with it as well. I'll get more on that in a moment, but first let's look at this article from The Gamer that's talking about what this actually will look like. So the headline, Steam bans all games that force players to watch ads. Scrolling down into the article, Valve doesn't want Steam to turn into a mobile games outlet as it bans games with forced advertisements from the platform. While this won't stop product placement and similar promotions, it does mean that you won't be made to pause the action and watch an ad to keep playing. Now, a lot of people associate this sort of thing with mobile games where there's games that are out there that are simply made just to push advertisements. They're usually free to play and they're kind of heavily advertised on social media and other things like that. You'll get a lot of the ads for these type of games just scrolling through TikTok and Instagram and other stuff like that. And then when you actually play the game, that's really all it is just you do something simple and then it has an ad, something simple and then it has an ad. Obviously, people don't play these games very long, but with the little bit they're able to make through the advertisement from what little people actually do play, well, obviously it's somewhat sustainable for the people who create these because they keep pushing it out there. So there's obviously some profit to be made with that. And this is what Steam is trying to get away from. But like I said, this isn't really an issue when it comes to Steam games. A lot of their stuff is more related to forcing people to watch ads in order to continue on or get some type of benefit for having done so. And this is what Steam wants to crack down on. It goes a little bit more on that in a moment. But first, let's look at what these policies will actually allow as far as allowing the developers to make money through outside sources other than what they're just charging for the game itself. As first reported by Gaming on Linux, thanks to Eurogamer, Valve has just updated its terms of service to reflect this, now adding restrictions on how ads in games can be implemented and how publishers can monetize their games. Now, if a game is monetized through ads like the ones mobile games make us sit through to keep playing or earn currency, then it cannot be released on Steam. Developers should not utilize paid advertisement as a business model in their games, such as requiring players to watch or otherwise engage with advertisement in order to play, or gating gameplay behind advertisement. Read the updated rules on Steam. Valve explains that these elements will have to be removed before Steam launch is permitted. So it sounds to me like this is more in line with some games out there that are available on Steam where they have certain things restricted behind advertisements, or at least you could grind out to actually gain some type of resources in game, or you could just watch an advertisement and then you're given the resources. That's what this is trying to cut off right here. But I don't necessarily like that. I can understand this is probably the better way to go forward because I don't like having advertisements in games in general. But if one had to choose between paying money to play a game without ads versus watching advertisements in order to play the games, I think the choice should be given to the player themselves instead of just having Steam making this decision, even though I think most gamers would be on board with this. And the reason why I say it's one of those choices or the other, because there's a lot of games out there that won't make money, that they could charge for it, but they choose just to make their money through advertisements. Now, if that's not available to them, then perhaps they'll have to charge in order to make their money off of the game right there. And maybe there's people who aren't willing to actually pay the money to play the game. And if that's the case, then yeah, maybe that game shouldn't stand on its own. But you got to keep in mind, there are a lot of actual good games out there that are ad supported like this. And for those ones, I think a lot of people are willing to pay a little bit of money to support it if they're no longer able to actually push the advertisements on it. The only thing though, is a lot of those games, they're small developers out there, maybe 1-2 man teams. And by making it freely available and then making money through advertisements, that's kind of how they get their name out there, because you just got to think of it for a second. If you had a free game, that you're probably more willing to give it a shot as opposed to even paying $1-2 for a game. I mean, that's a small barrier to entry, but still it's one that a lot of people aren't necessarily willing to deal with. So by making a free game available and then making money through advertisements, that kind of gets the foot in the door for some of these smaller developers, and they can kind of help, in a way, it kind of helps advertising their games. Maybe Steam could actually do something kind of a middle ground here where it leaves the choice in the hands of the individual gamer, where they'll have certain games where it's like you have the free version that's ad supported, or you can have the ad free version that you pay for. People might just be willing to check out the free version. If they actually really like it, then they're like, okay, I'll pay a little bit for the ad supported one. And then the people who are producing it are kind of having a way of getting their game out there a little bit further, or at least getting a little bit more attention without people having to feel like they need to invest in the game before they actually start playing it. I think that's kind of a good way of doing it. With the way Steam is rolling this out, I think they're probably have it's the right idea because it's trying to be a pro gamer mentality. I just think it could be tweaked a little bit in order to make this policy, as good as it could possibly be. The rules go further, seemingly getting rid of any loopholes. Developers should not use advertisements as a way to provide value to players, such as giving players a reward for watching or engaging with advertisements in the game. Yeah, and like I said, I agree with that, because that is kind of annoying when stuff is restricted behind watching an advertisement, and that's kind of what they're really trying to head off when it comes to this policy. Like I said, this really hasn't been an issue. Steam isn't known for having like those mobile type games that are just fully supported by ads. This new policy is more or less to clarify existing policies or at least that's what I think it's trying to clarify, existing policies where it's not necessarily an ad supported game, but there are a lot of advertisements within the game itself that kind of restrict certain features or other things behind the advertisement. This will likely come as a relief to many, as mobile games have a negative reputation for being crammed with these kinds of ads. As the last thing anyone will want to see at this spread elsewhere, many will make you sit through them to gain currency or lives in game, while charging you if you want to skip them. So while microtransactions are still allowed, they cannot be incentivized through ads. Any game that goes will either have to scrap them or find another way to make us part with our cash. And that's leads me to think that maybe this isn't necessarily a new or just for moving forward. It's going to be for kind of retroactive. So games that are currently existing on there will have to actually remove the ads, and then they're probably going to charge for the game if it was a free to play game. But I've pretty much already summed up what I think about this. I think the idea is good on the surface, and I think even the way they go about it is pretty good. I just think that they could do this in a better way that doesn't necessarily take control away from the gamers, because even if Steam wants to have more of a curated site where they don't necessarily have a lot of these cheaply made games and stuff on there, I think the choice should be in the hands of the gamers whether or not they want to play said games. Maybe you could just put marks on the game or have some type of notice that this game is supported by ads, or it has advertisements in it, or other things like that. I think that would be fine. So then people can choose like, okay, do I want to play this game or not? Or do I want to pay money for it? Or am I willing to pay my time by watching the ads in order to play the game? I think that would be probably the best solution. But if you had to choose between Steam having these games with no notice or Steam getting rid of them entirely, I think this is probably the best solution right there. I just think that they could have a better solution, but that's just what I think. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.